Hi, I'm Ketki.
And I'm Sanaya, and we're Thinking People. Today, we're thinking about the proverbial laundry basket and how it sits in the corner of our rooms, demanding our attention.
In this episode, we're making sense of the building blocks of an independent life for women in India, from laundry baskets to bank accounts. We talk about how we negotiate our desire for independence with the demands it places on us, and how being financially independent affects our own perceptions and ambitions for ourselves.
Life moves fast. Tune in to think about it. I actually wanted to start this conversation with just a general, I don't think we pause to think, and this is essentially the point of this podcast right now, to pause to think about it. But if somebody asked you, what does a typical week in your life in Delhi look like, how would you answer that question?
I don't know. I mean, in the sense, it's a lot of chores. It's a lot of, I think work takes up a big chunk of my week. So I often feel like, and I mean, this is common for anybody, but I sort of start working, I wake up on Monday and then I just don't think about anything else. The only thing that's top of mind for me is work till it's Friday evening, but which is sad.
Yeah.
Because, and that, there's a lot of things at play, or a lot of reasons for that. Of course, the nature of my work, the fact that I have to work with global teams, etc., etc. So some evenings I take evening calls.
Yeah.
So, I feel like there's not a lot of downtime during the week. But there's also, just taking care of the house. Typical work day would mean waking up in the morning, house help coming over, you sort of figuring out what you want to eat. Thinking about laundry, I think I've been recently thinking a lot about how it's just I'm constantly thinking about laundry all the time, and have I done enough of it? And I'm either doing my laundry, drying my laundry, or putting it away at any given day. So it's a lot of work and chores. That's a typical week. And then the weekend is just, meeting friends. And
yeah, you know what? I have, since as far as I can remember, clothes management takes up a lot of my brain space as well. And at any given moment, I either have clothes on a surface in my room that I need to fold, clothes in my laundry basket that I need to wash, and clothes I'm trying to purge. I'm going to go through this massive purge in my closet where I want to get rid of clothes. So I want to also get rid of clothes. And I feel like it's my Everest to arrive at a point where I am at peace and at ease with the situation.
Where you have a healthy relationship with your laundry, basically.
So I don't think my laundry basket has been completely empty.
No.
For the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I think that the moment I do one load, I clear the clothes from the surfaces, my laundry basket is half full again. It's my aim to have an empty laundry basket. I feel like I will have arrived somewhere.
Yeah.
And I do think my general state of mind is very closely linked to what's happening with clothes in my cupboard, clothes outside strewn around, clothes in the laundry basket, clothes drying on a clothes rack. I sometimes wonder, to have figured something out in your life, you have systematized laundry management. It's just something that I think about often. So yeah, I agree with you.
No, and also at the idea that at any given day, you can sort of open up your closet and be this thing that I want to wear is clean and wrinkle-free, ironed, dry cleaned, or whatever it is, and I can wear it, basically.
It's deeply connected to mental health as well, because if clothes are not available to be worn, or they're in a state of disarray, and then I'm okay, this is a way in which I also feel good about myself. And then if my state of mind before stepping out of the house is one in which I'm staring at my cupboard and not able to pick something, or that the thing I want is buried deep in my laundry basket, and then I am reminded that I haven't done my laundry the way I should have done it on time, and now I am confronted with slapping together a random outfit which I'm not going to be happy with, I would have started my day badly.
Yeah. Okay. First world problems, I suppose.
No,
But
But I think it's
no, it's fair.
very on theme because I mean, this is a byproduct of living independently, and I guess what we're trying to understand is that, yeah, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this to ourselves when we could have been living with our family? And like living with family means that there is this system in place. You know, you have like, it's whenever I go back home and visit my parents, I'm like, wow, I am able to like mentally check out. And I'm like, oh, I can so easily focus at the task at hand, like, which is either if I'm working from there, getting work done.
I can self-actualize.
I have like time to relax. You know, I think we've spoken about this very often, where like every couple of months I'm like, yeah, I can just go back to my parents' place and chill, you know?
Yeah.
And like food will just appear, fruits will appear on your desk, cut fruits, you know.
Want to outsource the taking care of yourself part of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're even asking this question because like this is an option for a lot of people in India to not move out, to not do the whole independent thing, to choose to not figure out how to manage laundry.
Yeah.
You know, but we're doing it, and I think we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it feels long to me, but have been doing it. And I think I very often ask myself, what is it that I value about this? Because you will constantly see people who maybe are not, you know, their priorities are not the same, or like their idea of like what it means to be independent is not the same. Because for me, so much of it is tied to obviously work, right? And also managing myself in my own space.
Yeah.
Like, and that is of utmost significance and importance, and my life depends on it almost. Which is why, like, you know, I've come across people who, especially in Delhi, who will tell you that, you know, Delhi NCR, that, oh yeah, I live with my family, but, you know, I have my own floor or my own space or my own room and nobody really bothers me. And my parents give me privacy, you know, like that age-old mythical notion of privacy when you have your own floor, apparently, in a house. So I just wonder to myself that what's the difference in like what you're valuing in your priorities when, you know, perspectives are so different. And this is like, I mean, we both spend time not living in India. And that's another kind of like self-reliance that you have to develop. Like if you're living in a place where you don't have the kind of like labor economy that we do in India, where, you know, you can open an app and have everything delivered to your doorstep, or like help coming and cooking for you. And our problem is, can we meal plan and think of what to ask someone else to cook? Like that's our problem here, right? But yeah, what is it that compels us to do this?
I've often thought about this, right? Like, because I think this is something that I've always wanted. Like ever since I was a teenager, I was like, I cannot wait for the day that I get to like move out. No, I love parents, love you. But I cannot wait for the day that I get to move out and like have my own apartment and set up my own space and do things exactly the way that I want to. And this is why I crave independence, because it's not, yes, of course, like there's so many things that help enable it, right? Like working this job means I can I can afford my apartment. But then the thing that's the most, and being financially independent is, of course, like we can get into that. Like that's the thing that sort of is like where you build on from, and like what helps enable all of this. But I think for me, it is the quest to live an authentic life, one that I think is like fully and completely true to who I am.
Yeah.
And my space is really important. And my space, and also how I spend my days.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as much as is like it, and it can be very different for different people, but and regardless of how cool or not cool or whatever your parents are, I still think that that is a necessary process, or like a necessary one that I needed to go through, and a liberating process for me. Which is like, and what you described about like, you know, even being able to figure out like what outfit to put together, it's very like, you can kind of like, you have this freedom to be exactly who you are in this space that you created for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a curation of your own life. That is what enables, that is what independence gives you, the ability to curate your life.
Yeah, I think one way in which I think about it is that it's very important for me to live my life on my own terms. And I feel like I've been fortunate enough to have been given the freedom to understand what that kind of ownership over your own decisions means. Like, you know, whether it's got to do with like decisions around what you're going to study. I know like not a lot of people have that kind of freedom. There is always parental pressure around that. But I think like as I've gotten older and as I have witnessed so many people around me maybe not having like the freedom to, you know, choose what kind of jobs to take up, where to live, whom to be with, whom to marry.
Yeah.
Or even, and sometimes it's not even like direct, right? It's just this diffuse like societal level pressure which nobody needs to like come and verbalize, but you feel it because there are like certain norms that we all exist under, which is like both of us are 29, we're going to be 30 next year, and it's a weird thing to even say out loud because in many ways I still feel like someone who is whatever, like, you know, I don't feel overly different from like a younger version of myself. I feel like my priorities are pretty similar. Like I want to do something that interests me, excites me. I'm still thinking about independence, but in like different terms. Like maybe when I was in my early 20s, it was about, you know, what am I interested in? Am I getting the opportunity to study? Now I'm consistently thinking about, okay, what do I want my work life to be like? What relationship do I want my work life to have with my with other parts of my life? Like, what do I want a relationship to look like? So I'm consistently like that quest to understand what it is I want is ongoing. And I keep thinking that, you know, there is like a script, like sometimes written, many times unwritten script that women especially are expected to follow. And no matter how progressive your own ideals and your own surroundings, you will feel it. Like you will feel like the anxieties of aging. You will feel the anxieties of like, oh, you know, what is life going to be like if I don't get married at all? Like, you know, like these are questions that I grapple with a lot. Like, what does it mean to like think of like an alternative setup or structure of life? And I just realized, like, for me, it's very important to not fall into that script if that's not what I want.
Yeah.
And what I actually struggle with is to figure out what is it that I want and what is it that is expected of me, because it falls into that script. But where are those places where maybe I might want something that is in the script, and am I resisting it just because it's in the script? So like I feel like figuring out what my own terms are.
Yeah.
That's what I think, like I think about it all the time.
How to engage with the script, basically. Like how how much of the script you want to write into your own life, you know?
Maybe I want to read it and then throw it away.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to read it and act it out. Like some parts of it I want to edit down. Like, you know, what version, what are these terms? I keep saying I want to live life on my own terms, but what are these terms? And I feel like in my head, like independence is kind of that freedom to almost like fuck around and find out.
I think, I mean, I've always felt like the most suffocating place to be is under the weight of someone else's expectations, usually. And this is something that like women, specifically women, are subject to much more so, right? Like, like exactly what you're saying. It's get married by this age, have kids by this age, etc., etc. If you do get married and you sort of move into your husband's family, there's all these expectations of like what kind of bahu, wife, etc., etc. you have to be.
Yeah, you have a role now.
Yeah.
and roll with its own script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one could argue, I mean, and especially being women ourselves, like it's all the more necessary and important for us to, we possibly crave independence so much more than men for exactly this reason, right? And
also they already have some sense of it, right?
Yeah.
Like we're kind of like starting from a position where we have to negotiate what that even means.
yeah,
And like, again, like it's impossible to think about independence without thinking about like this, like whatever, a patriarchal structure, right? Like whether that's marriage, whether that is like family, etc. Like it's how do you, what is, like for an Indian woman, what does it mean to be independent?
yeah,
But at the same time, remember that we also exist as people who crave connections of some kind. So it's not like, you know, you want to isolate yourself
no.
from every structure that exists. You want to,
I suppose the quest for independence is like a quest to understand your identity, right? And the thing is that, like in your stereotypical patriarchal society, for most men are encouraged to think about who they are, whether it's in the context of work, whether like whereas women are first asked to, you know, they're supposed to like sort of negotiate their identity in a relational setting. Like I'm someone's daughter, I'm someone's wife, I'm someone's etc. Like and you can want all those things,
yeah,
and those are great things to be and to have. But I think that at least for me, I often find that like I want the space to be able to negotiate my identity on my own terms, completely,
yeah,
you know, unadulterated by all of these societal expectations, which is of course like it's easier said than done, because it doesn't just take living alone to be rid of them. But that is the attempt, I suppose, or the idea behind
yeah.
seeking independence.
And I think the starting point on obviously is like getting a job and being financially independent. And the kind of financial independence, actually, getting a job is just like one part of it, like managing your finances on your own, right? I mean, how many people, like it's very common for people to have joint accounts with their parents.
Yeah.
I know I have been through a process in which I would like no questions asked, you know, sign on to investments that, you know, my parents would suggest I make.
Yeah.
And it's taken a while to get to a point where I'm making those decisions myself, like how much money is to be invested, at what point do I want to liquidate something, what do I need it for? And like it's taken like 5.5 hours of 5.5 hours. I wish it was 5.5 hours, 5.5 years of working to get to a point where I have like bigger ambitions for how much I want to save.
Yeah.
And not just that, like, you know, even stuff like, am I going to, like, how much money am I spending just by instinct, knowing how much is in my bank account, like developing that sense, which I, like, it did not come naturally to me.
Yeah, of course.
It 100% did not. And I don't know if that's like some kind of like social conditioning, like women don't think about, like we are not like expected to or like taught to think in this way or whatever while we're growing up.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to just have that instinctive sense of like, I think I, like, you know, I don't need to like sit and like monitor everything like item by item. But I have a good sense of how much money there is, how much I'm spending, how much I can afford, like, you know, figuring out how to smooth expenses over time, etc., etc. And like the more I have a handle over all of these things, the more I feel like I can do things without needing to justify some of these decisions.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why did I decide to liquidate, for example, at a certain moment in time? Why did I decide to reduce investments at another point in time? And this is, again, like, I'm talking about just conversations with my parents.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, I think what I'm striving for is that to arrive at a place where, yes, I will be dependent on my parents. Yes, I will always want advice from them. But at the same time, I want it to be like the kind of conversation in which I am still going to make a decision on what I think is going to be best. And I feel like I have gotten there.
And I want to maybe like you can speak to a little bit more about like why that's important. You gave an example, but
Yeah.
what is it that makes that important to you? And secondly, do you think, that this is something that most people want? Or do you think that this is something unique to you?
I think I don't think a lot of women think about money in this way. Like, or in the sense that, like, wanting that kind of ownership over your own finances and funds, no matter what your relationships with the people around you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, this is something I've kind of imbibed from my mom,
Yeah.
who, like, worked for all these, like, she worked for like 30 years before retiring. But I sometimes get the sense that people they understand, like, on a macro level that we should have jobs and we should be financially independent. But, like, the granularities of, like, do you know how you're saving your money? Are, like, are you able to buy that slightly unreasonable thing that you wanted to spend like 10,000 rupees on without your parents or anybody just saying that that's irresponsible, you shouldn't have done that. I feel like this allows me to control the means and shape of my life.
Yeah.
Right? It's got a lot to do with privacy as well. Like, how are you spending your money? Who knows about it? Who doesn't know about it? So I think that's a huge privacy angle.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a huge, like, obviously it gives you economic empowerment, also gives you a lot of agency in many situations. I know there are a lot of people who think about this consciously, but, like, your approach towards relationships is different.
Absolutely.
Where you, like, because you are leading a financially self-sufficient life, you're not thinking as much about, like, this other person's financial situation. Or, like, it's not going to be like a central lever in your decision to be with somebody. So I feel like financial independence actually gives you a lot of clarity about other parts of your life. It's like, again, if we're going back to the whole, like, Maslow hierarchy, self-actualization, like, it gives you that base thing where you then can be like, okay, what do I actually want? How do I want to spend my time? I have the means now. And if I didn't have that, I don't know how I'd answer any of those other questions.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with money?
I think the same, in the sense that, like, when I first started earning, I mean, I again, it's always, there was no question that, like, I had to be financially independent. This is also, like, something that was important to me. And I was like, after a certain point, it's just not right for me to be taking any more money from my parents. But the thing is, when I first got the money, I just did not know what to do with it. I was like, okay, I'm earning all of this money. I have no idea what it means to save, how I should be saving, how I should be budgeting my money, how I should be doing any of that. And then the default was, okay, my dad has told me, invest in these 4 things and just do it, and, like, blindly do it. And, like, some of it, that's fully on me as well, because it's like, like you said, there is, like, this social conditioning at play, which is that I've just never grown up thinking about money. That was never anything that was not interesting to me, in the sense of how must one manage it, and what does it take to sort of, be judicious, think about investing it, growing it, etc., etc. It's not something that came naturally. But, like you said, it's been something that I have learned with time. And I would say very recently that I feel like I am taking independent decisions about what to do with my money. It's very recent. And I have been earning for over 5.5 years. Right? So, like, that yeah. And like, going back to that other question which I asked you, which is that, like, do you think that everybody wants this.
Mm.
Because like everybody wants to earn money,
Mm.
sure. But does everybody necessarily want or crave the independence that comes with it? Because you can be earning money, but you
Yeah.
can also kind of like, not really be seeking that. And yeah, I was, curious to know what you thought about that.
Yeah. I think so. Interesting question. So I feel like, leading a quote unquote comfortable life,
Yeah.
right, where maybe someone else is taking care of your expenses, whoever that may be, parents, spouse, whatever. I think there is a cost. Like, you're obviously paying for that comfort in some
Yeah.
way, and you're paying for it with like some freedoms
Yeah.
that you will not be able to enjoy in that kind of a setup. And my sense is that, like, obviously I don't think people think in these conscious, explicit terms, but I feel like when you're drawing up a pros and cons list, the cost benefit analysis of comfort vis-a-vis how much, whatever freedom you're giving up, or that trade-off, people, that's palatable to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, yeah, I'm okay to give up some of these freedoms if I don't necessarily have to think about this.
Yeah.
And that's not okay with me at all. Like, I cannot imagine giving these kinds of freedoms up for anything.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more important for me to build my life like brick by boring brick and get to a point of comfort 20 years later.
Yeah.
Like, it would bother me if it was somebody else that was doing it for me. Like, I don't know if that's obstinate or stubborn or whatever, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
what we're valuing is different, or like our idea of what is independence or freedom is very different.
Yeah. I definitely think that is the case. And I actually think that everyone is like, it's their prerogative, right? Like, obviously, like what you want to do with your life and your time and how you sort of approach it, like that's completely fine. I cannot ever remember being any other way. Like, this is just so true to who I am.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have always wanted this before I even could think about like these complex ideas of like, why would a woman want to be independent, or like, what does that mean, etc., etc. It's just, I was always this person. So in a way, like, I'm just kind of being true to who I am. I think you said something like, is this me being stubborn or obstinate? And I remember as you said that, I'm like, it sucks that we kind of have to even think that. Sometimes I feel like, even right now as we're talking about this, I'm like, I have this sense that there are going to be people that will listen to this episode and get offended, because in some way it's like kind of like you and I possibly saying, hey, this is something we really want for our life, is kind of like, it is so like it is like at odds in a sense of with a lot of the traditional structures that a lot of people have possibly bought it, which is fine. Like, in the sense, it's not, there's no judgment to them, but it's almost as if very freely and actively saying that like, this is what I've wanted and I've always wanted this, it's controversial even in today's day and age, which like you saying that like, hey, am I being stubborn? And I'm like, nah, you're not. Would a man be considered to like be stubborn if he said like, hey, I just want to build my own life? No, he's a self-made man. And it's like, why is it so controversial to be, or even want to be, a self-made woman?
Yeah. I get it. No, the interesting thing is that if like female labor force participation in India, which is the official stat for the number of women who are participating in the workforce. Now, this was like perpetually in the news around like 2019, 2020, because labor force participation had actually fallen.
Yeah.
Like, there were fewer women working, and I think it was, I don't remember correctly, but like it was around 20 to 23% in 2020. And this was like observed across income groups.
Yeah.
And in fact, like, when you moved up income groups, employment among women like was actually falling. And there was this sense that if you're not earning that much income, you're working because you need to provide, you need to contribute to the household. So like a lot of women were working, but as you move up, if it's like if a woman is not required to work, she's not working. So like it's that whole like whatever the trend that you're even seeing in like the US with the trad wives or whatever, traditional housewife.
Yeah.
There are people who, despite educational qualifications and like this is not even like familial responsibilities being like forced upon some of these women, right? Like they're not made to stay at home and not work. Not in all cases. There are certain cases where people don't want to work, which is like alien to me. Like that I only understand like conceptually and theoretically. And I've heard like people I know, friends of friends of friends of friends, who will like say even that I don't want to work. Like that is not a desire I have. So like,
well, you could not want to work, but you would still do it. In the sense,
yeah, but I guess that's like a good like reflection question. Which I'm asking myself a lot, would I still be working if I had all the money in the world? Through like, let's say like some kind of freak event, I just get a bunch of money in like lottery winnings and I don't actually have to work. Would I still work? And I feel like I would still work.
Yeah.
Like I would still want to do something.
Yeah.
I feel like obviously like there are the people who are like, you know, like why do you want to stress yourself out with that?
Yeah.
And clearly I want the stress as well.
Yeah.
Like I want it.
But if you had all of this money, you probably wouldn't work like your current job or like a corporate job, but you would possibly do meaningful work that or you know,
thick burn.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I hope our bosses aren't listening.
You'd then have the privilege and opportunities to think about what you want to do, even if it doesn't compensate you as well. Yeah, I mean, I would probably be doing something different for sure.
Yeah.
But I would still want to work. I'd still want to create something. And, you know, it's actually, all of this is like very interesting because we're talking about work, we're talking about money, we're talking about financial independence, we're talking about like family relationships, etc. There was an argument that my mother and I had recently in which I told her that I don't think I would feel comfortable like being in a relationship with someone who like earns much more money than me. Like, I mean, obviously all of this is in theoretical terms, but it's like if someone was earning like 6 or 7 times the amount I'm earning, I don't know how I would navigate the financial relationship, because automatically you're in a situation where someone's earning so much more money than you, and then you can potentially get a, you know, more expensive apartment to live in, but then majority of the rent is going to be supported by this other person. So I would automatically feel like I'm giving up something, but then at the same time, you know, like it depends. My mother was of the opinion where she's like, you can't be rigid about this.
Yeah.
Which is that you may meet someone who's like older than you and has that much more experience and therefore is in a different like financial situation, or that like in the course of a relationship it ebbs and flows. Sometimes, you know, someone like one person is doing more of the supporting than the other based on which stage or phase in your career you're in. And I largely understand and agree with her, but you know, it was very interesting that I like at a work event, and you know, I basically work around women's leadership, so like this is like relevant topic. But I was speaking to like these like, you know, senior women leaders who've been like working for a long time and, you know, would be around my mother's age, like they have kids around my age. And I kind of recounted this conversation with them, and I said that, you know what, I had this conversation with my mom, and like one of them, like they both had, it was very interesting. One of them was like, you're saying a very sensible thing. Yes, you're saying a very sensible thing. Like, yes, you should be thinking about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And, you know, this was a person who like has a family, is married, etc.
Yeah.
And the other person who is not married.
Yeah.
She is the one who she just kind of told me, she's like, you know what, so I just don't have too many conditions, And like I found that
Interesting.
dichotomy in response to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's kind of the tussle, because on the one hand, you're like, okay, I want that kind of independence. I want to be like my eyes wide open. I want to be in like, aware of these things, and I don't want to like slip up. But at the same time, I don't want to be so rigid or obstinate or whatever that I'm like closing myself off to things. Because ultimately, like if you're talking about like a relationship, like you want to be in a place where there is enough mutual respect between two people for like financial imbalances to kind of not be that relevant.
And to go back to your earlier point where you said that in a way, when you do become financially independent, when you seek out a relationship, money, at least at the beginning, it's not something you necessarily think about.
Yeah.
And the other thing that came up is like, what if the opposite was true? What if you were earning 6 times more than your partner?
I'm so okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fully okay with that.
I'm fully okay with that. And like also, there is then that expectation of like, my partner should be okay with that, right?
No, I mean, I would be like, if this dude is okay with like his partner earning so much more than he is, like must be a solid dude.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously this person can't be like a loser, who's not handling who's not handling his money right, or does not know how to manage things, living like a college existence or whatever. Like obviously not that, but like if like a cis-het man is comfortable with his cis-het partner earning more money than him, like I'm like, that's good. That's a solid seems like a solid guy.
Yeah.
If all else checks out. But yeah, I mean, it's like, it's complex. I think basically work, structure of life, money informs literally all these other relational things as well. So I feel like it's one of those things where you preemptively think about these things quite a bit, right? Like, because when you first think about like financial independence, when you're navigating it, you're just navigating it yourself. And then you bring in a second person into the fold, and then there is this institution of marriage. And like that's like, there are so many, I often think about it. I'm like, okay, honestly, if somebody was earning like 6 times more than me, but it's like his money that he's made, that's one thing. Yeah.
But if it's like his family's money, then that possibly I'm uncomfortable with, actually, because there is then this like larger contextual thing, like societal thing of like, okay, now you are a part of this big, rich family, and there are so many more expectations that come with that. But if it's someone who is, self-made, but and has earned, all of this money, in a sense, I'm like, okay, that's great. Like, you've done this. But obviously, that's not the reason why I like you, I hope. That's not why I've sort of come into this. Essentially, what you're trying to say is that, like, if I am in I have a relationship with someone who earns so much more money than me, then my independence can possibly be threatened in the future.
Or that, like, suddenly my lifestyle is financed by this person's money, because I, with my own income, would not be able to afford that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's basically the fear.
Yeah.
But I think that as long as I'm comfortable with, like, the possibility of exiting that relationship and then downsizing my life to something I can afford.
Exactly.
I think it should be.
That was the other thing that I was going to say, is that, like, there's also the fear of getting comfortable with that.
Yeah. I always be comfortable with potential downsizing, basically.
I'm going to ask another question here, which is, do you think that there is such a thing as hyper-independence, and what is it?
Yeah, I think that's what we were kind of hinting at. Like, am I being stubborn when it comes to certain things, or am I just placing too many conditions on myself?
Yeah.
Which is another theme that keeps coming up, which is that we still, like, independence doesn't necessarily mean you don't depend on other people, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have like emotional dependencies. You want connections. You will be making compromises for people, and like, you will not be living life on your own terms, because things are going to happen. Like, circumstances are going to make it such that you have responsibilities other than, like, self-actualizing, basically. And that's it's a matter of time. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think that if it like there will be limits to independence because people will depend on us,
Yeah.
right? And after a point, I feel like you enter this territory where you're like kind of cutting yourself off of experiences, right? And there is like a fundamental compromising nature to the life that we lead, which
Yeah.
no like sociological phenomena or like feminist stance can actually like argue with.
Yeah.
Because it's like life is going to be about making certain compromises, and yes, even of your principles, and yes, even of like some of your freedoms, because you will always have people you care about.
There is the theory of it all, and then there's the lived reality, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you're constantly sort of negotiating both things and trying to achieve that balance. And I see, like there is the feminist context, but if you just think about like independence and dependence and that sort of like dichotomy, I ultimately like life is just sort of figuring out that balance, because you said that there will be people who will be dependent on us. That could be your parents, aging parents. That could be children, and that always comes at the cost of your independence in a sense. But I would say, it's not like, in the sense it's a part of life. And then there is like other relationships. And I feel like a hyper, like it's one of those things where like I don't know, it's like there is a period of through your life, you're sort of like negotiating and figuring out your independence in a variety of contexts, and that sort of like changes with experiences and like the life stage that you're in.
Yeah.
I would say that like your early 20s and your 20s is like, if you think about the script, that is that phase where you get to truly be, in a sense, absolutely selfish.
Yeah.
And like that's really wonderful about that phase. But I also think you can't have too much of this, and you possibly shouldn't have too much of it, because it can then mean a very lonely life.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's basically like you said, right? Like there's theory and then there's lived reality.
Yeah.
I think like those two responses of like those women I was speaking to, like one person is like, yes, like, like feminist theory is all about like women's economic empowerment and financial independence. And you like, but then there's the lived reality, which is like sometimes your principles can lead you to being lonely.
Yeah.
And, I saw this tweet thread. She was talking about there is like an epidemic in heterosexual relationships because women are deeply dissatisfied with their potential partners, because like, we've come to a point where like women are way more aware, have way more agency, have more like depend less financially, obviously they're more economically empowered. And like men's emotional literacy, availability and capacity to be good partners is just not living up to a lot of women's expectations. So like a lot of women are just kind of like frustrated with these prospects. So like, I mean, I think that's a good thing. So, but I think living life on your own terms, like if that means you're lonely, like there's going to be like a negotiation.
Yeah.
And like the question is, where do you compromise? What are you willing to compromise on? What is your absolute non-negotiable? And independence is being able to decide what those non-negotiables
are. Yeah. Because some amount of compromise, I do feel, is a healthy thing. That's what, like, I mean, your relationships are also everything, right? Like it's like those are...
Yeah, we're not automatons.
No. And it's also, there's one thing of like what people mean to us, but there's what we mean to other people. Like, and I mean, I think about this and I reflect on this like the most when I think about my parents, and I think about like possibly a marriage in the future and what my wedding will mean to my family. And like often I've like sort of come across like my friends getting married, and they all have said, they're just like, you cannot you just can't escape the fact that like this is a incredibly, if not more important day in your parents' life than it is for you. And it's also there's that, plus there's this the social, like the fact that we're Indians, and like this is what marriages mean in Indian society and culture, and like all of that feeds into it. But I think about this very often because I'm, you know, I've always been like, oh, you know, my wedding, I want to do it as per my terms and it should be exactly what I want. But it just can never be that. It'll never be that, because there's me, there's my partner, there's my partner's family, there's my family. And everybody is, it's like, it's one of those things where you kind of have to relegate control in some way and also have your non-negotiables. But I think about this very often. I'm nowhere close to getting married, but I'm just like, what will it be like, and will it drive me up the wall? But I think that is the ultimate sort of, especially like particularly for a woman, you know, the event where you think the most about your independent life and what it's going to be going forward, and the process of getting married, your actual marriage, all of that, you know, is
you know, daunting,
and I would say daunting. Yeah, you know, like it's sad that like the first thought is sort of like, it's almost negative, which is this should ideally be a nice thing, you know.
I mean, yes. I mean, I often think about these things and just think like, I'm just not gonna do it at all. Like,
just gonna get a court marriage, be done with it.
Or I mean, I'm like, I don't know if maybe I should just not marry another Indian, you know, like, or maybe I should not get married, or like let's figure it out. Like, let's write a new script and I'll figure that out like at a later date, you know, that kind of stuff. I think like maybe to end now. I mean, we still have a year to go, but like, I just wanted to do like a review of our 20s.
Yeah.
Because this is the independence arc and selfish era, like you said. So, like, what have your 20s been like?
Oh, man. It's just been one big existential crisis, if I'm being truly honest with myself. It's been amazing, obviously. Like, it's been like full of very necessary, sometimes unhealthy, sometimes incredible experiences. It's been one, I think the biggest takeaway from my 20s for me has also sort of been figuring out what it is that my friendships mean to me. And that's because it's another thing, like that's the other thing, you know, which people often talk about, is that like when you're sort of navigating life independently, but you sort of go through this phase where your friends become your family. And that, like, I feel like my 20s have really been that. And sort of that has been like a really important, you know, positive thing. It's been, I sort of come out of it a more, hopefully, self-assured person, more in tune with who I am, which has also been amazing. But it's also been difficult, because coming, like, that process of, you know, becoming self-reliant, becoming self-assured is not easy. And there is a lot of like constant identity crisis, which, I mean, I don't know what my 30s and 40s are going to be like. I suppose it'll keep happening, but you feel it very viscerally, I suppose, in your 20s. So it's been a mix of things. But yeah,
I think mine as well. I feel like, I think the first half, like 20 to 25, like there were definite moments where I just felt like it's getting worse with each passing year. Like, you go through, like, obviously you're going through these like sea changes and tectonic shifts in your life where, you know, all of a sudden you're, you know, like adulthood is thrust upon you, and you may or may not, you're never really ready for it. And you're trying to figure out so many like formative things at once, and everything's happening for the first time, and you're feeling so many, like every emotion you're feeling in relation to these big changes is like a first time emotion. And I think for me, just knowing how to deal with all of that has been literally like ages 20 to 29 so far, which is understanding my own emotional peculiarities and gaining awareness of them, and going through this entire journey of feeling like I needed to fix my emotions.
Yeah.
And then arriving at a point where I felt like I understand that I need to get to a place of self-acceptance, that, I may have thoughts that I don't like. I may have emotional reactions that I don't like. Like I definitely have had or have struggled with a sense that I need to have like the perfect response or reaction or way of dealing with like anything that happens in my life, which I guess is like a good student, like topper mentality or whatever. And like a fundamental discomfort with things not going perfectly the way I imagine them to. And yeah, I think this like quest for self-acceptance has been basically my 20s, where I just want to feel more assured of who I am.
Yeah.
And like, to know that in a moment that I'm going to have, like, I don't want to be searching for what I'm feeling and trying to put words to it. Like, I want to just know what I'm feeling, and I just want to react to the way I'm feeling. Like, did not have it be buried so deep. So I feel like that's been a lot of my 20s. And I feel like it's taken so long to actually arrive at a point where I am now able to say that, oh, I think I like this, or I think I don't like that, and I think this gives me joy, and I think that other thing actually irritates me. So now I actually like feel like I can make decisions around what I actually want to do, how I actually want to spend my time.
It's clarity.
Yeah.
And I think that there, like what you're describing also, I mean, I really relate to it. There's a kind of resignation, and I mean that in a really good sense.
Yeah.
A resignation, you resign to life and the idea that there are things that are just not in your control.
Yes.
And to yourself, like to who you are, because there is this constant, like that tension of your early mid-20s is like a tension. It's like you are firstly incredibly idealistic about like what it is that your life should be like and who you should be, and then you're sort of faced with the disappointment that it's actually really not any of that. And that is like when, I mean, at least for me, that's when like the depression hits, and that's when the wave of sadness comes in, and then the clarity, and then the peace comes with like a resignation. And I think that truly has been the arc of my 20s.
Yeah, like, like seed control.
Yeah.
When there's really nothing to be gained out of trying to control the situation.
Which is really funny to end an episode about independence.
With seeding control.
With seeding control. And thank you always for joining us. Thanks so much for listening. Thinking People podcast is hosted by Sanaya Chandar and Keetki Sharma. Our producer for this episode is Yash Hirave.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your audio content. Be sure to follow us at Thinking People Pod on Twitter or X, and at Thinking People Pod on Instagram. If you'd like to get in touch, write to us at thinkingpeoplepodcast@gmail.com.
Stay tuned for our next episode.